It's thumbs up from Adrian, and we're live on Facebook. Good evening, and welcome to Breaking the Consensus, the family and life show that interviews conservatives, pro-lifers, or just really interesting people that are not in the news. This evening, I'm sitting in the Seven Oaks Hotel with the wonderful Vicky Wall. Good evening, Vicky.
Good evening, Paddy.
Vicky, you campaigned quite hard against repeal of the 8th. You're very opposed to abortion, and you told me that this stems from a personal experience, and anyone who's seen you speak knows that experience, but our listeners out there on Facebook probably haven't had that opportunity. Vicky, you got a life-limiting diagnosis for a child.
Right.
What happened?
So I had an unplanned pregnancy.
Okay.
So it was a bit of a shock. When it all sank in, we thought, okay, we can do this. I had a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old.
And now you're pregnant again.
And now I'm pregnant again.
It's a big gap.
Yeah. And a new relationship.
Okay.
It was a new relationship, so it was a surprise. So when we got used to the surprise, we went for our scan at 20 weeks, which I was about 24 weeks then when I actually got the appointment.
Now, at 24 weeks, a baby is pretty well developed.
Yeah.
You can, a child will, some children will survive outside the womb at that stage.
Yeah. These scans are meant to happen at 20 weeks. I didn't know what these scans were about. I just thought that you went and you had your scan. I didn't know that they were ever looking for anything. I never even really knew that.
It was a way of having
a
nice picture of the baby.
That's it. That's it.
This was you when you were 24 weeks.
Yeah. And all I wanted to know was, I going to be buying blue or pink?
Okay.
That was my concern that day.
And what were we buying?
So when we went down, the midwife was very thorough and very kind, and we were talking lots. And I thought it had been 15 years since I had had a scan.
And was it different?
Oh, so different. Big TV, big monitor, so clear. And the midwife was really being thorough, and I was just happy staring at my baby. She was so active, and she was waving and jumping back and forth, and it was just lovely to be there and see her.
You could actually see her move and wave.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Fingers and toes. The midwife asked me to turn over.
Okay.
And I thought that was because I was overweight and that she couldn't get a good picture.
Right.
So I did, and I still didn't mind. I still thought I'm getting to see this beautiful little
from
baby.
A different angle. Yeah.
Kept nagging her, could she see what gender the baby was? She kept saying, not yet. So then she said, Vicky, I think there's a problem with your baby. I just looked, and she said she has talipes. Now, I didn't know what that meant, and it's club. I said, what is that? And she said, club feet. And
so what was your reaction then?
In my head, I'm like, oh, the baby will have to wear ugly shoes for a while. You know,
and that will fix it.
that was it.
Fix it. Yeah.
A little bit shallow. And then when she saw that I wasn't bothered, she said, there seems to be a few other problems. And she said, I think there might be something genetically wrong with the baby.
I'll stop you there. What is that like to get that news? I mean, what happens to your heart?
It breaks. It breaks. The only genetic thing that I could think of was Down syndrome.
Okay.
And you're terrified.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrified. You just, images flash through your head.
Of?
Fear. Just sick children. Children being teased.
And bullied.
Being not
different.
Having the support. Yeah. Everything. You just want your child to be as happy as they can be. That's all you ever want for them.
So that was that terrible shock. What happened then?
Well, then I asked what we were having.
Okay.
So she said, you're having a little girl.
Right.
So right then we called her Leodin.
Leodin?
Yeah, we had that name picked.
You had the name picked out. What does it mean?
So it means grey lady, and there's a very beautiful story behind it about a nun that fell in love with the poet, and she left the order to be with him, but he didn't want her to do that. So he sailed to sea, and she went to Waterford actually, where he used to write his poetry, and she laid down and died of a broken heart. because he was gone.
It's an intensely romantic story,
Yeah.
and it's peculiarly Waterford.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Just to point out, you are from Waterford.
I am.
You have a most beautiful musical accent. Where is that from?
So my parents left Dungarvan, where I was born, to go to Wales for work when I was 6 months old. So we lived in Wales until I was 14, and then we moved back to Ireland.
So that's the basis of that lovely
Yeah.
musical accent. Now, you're now told you have a little girl, Leodone, and she's got a problem. What's the next step? What happens next? You're in that room, you're shocked. Were you crying?
Oh, I was, inconsolable. Yeah,
I can understand.
And you don't even know where the fear is coming from. You can't pinpoint it.
It's just a massive tsunami of fear
Yeah.
has hit you.
Yeah, and I had brought my older children with me to see her.
Oh dear.
So they were out in the waiting room, a packed waiting room, and
And you don't want to bring them in now?
you don't want to leave the room.
Yes.
You can't go that way, you can't go this way. There's people
nowhere to
everywhere.
go.
No, there's nowhere to go,
Yeah.
and it's terrifying. They give you time. They put us into a separate room,
Okay.
and a doctor came in, and he was a lovely doctor, and I had been having a bit of banter with him before the
Yes,
scan
yeah.
when we were talking. He called me a geriatric mother because I was 37, which is a medical term.
Yes.
Yeah. And he gave me just a big hug. He just hugged me. And
Which was wonderfully humane, but I'd say probably not recommended practice.
no, because I knew then if a doctor was hugging you, that there was a serious problem.
Yeah.
And I knew they knew, but they couldn't tell me.
Okay.
They kept saying I had to go to Dublin to get checked.
Right. So now you've got to go to Dublin. This is 24 weeks. When does Dublin happen?
So I kind of rang Dublin myself and nagged
Okay.
because they lost the memo from the doctor to contact Dublin. So there was a bit of a fuss there. But
So Dublin loses the note from the
Yeah.
doctor.
Yeah.
The HSE is wonderful. Yeah.
And got to speak to a wonderful midwife in Hall Street, and she said, come up tomorrow, which was the Friday.
Okay.
So 2 days after my initial scan. So we got the train, because parking is terrible, and
Yeah.
we got the train. Not knowing what to expect, I had Googled some of the symptoms, and again these awful pictures were coming up, and the word trisomy kept coming up, but
Okay,
again
trisomy kept-
nothing that I could pinpoint. So when we went to Hollis Street, we saw the most beautiful midwife, and she was scanning, and then a doctor came in very quickly, and he said that he couldn't spend much time with us because he had an emergency C-section due in a different hospital. So he said, do you mind if I just scan you quickly? And I said, no, that's fine. So he scanned, I'd say, for less than 3 minutes.
Okay.
And he just said, I'm sorry, love. It's trisomy 18, Edwards syndrome. And I just looked at him,
You had no idea what that is.
no idea.
Nobody would have.
Never heard of
Yes.
it. Never read it in any book. Never known a child to have it. So I didn't know that it was life limiting. And I just looked, and he said she's incompatible with life.
Incompatible with life.
Yeah.
But
Now, I'm
you
lying
always
on this
alive.
bed, yeah, and Hollis Street had just been done up at the time, and there was this huge screen in front of me, and she's kicking, I can feel what I can see, she's moving, she's twisting, she's so active. I had seen her sucking her thumb at this stage, and so had the midwife. The midwife told us that's what she was doing. And I just looked at him and I said, what can we do? Because I thought we could fix her.
You thought this was curable?
Yeah. You think everything can be fixed. You know, we've all seen videos of babies being operated on, and he just said that my only option was to pop to England.
That was the actual term he used.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not true. Pop to England.
Pop to England, yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think he knew by my face that
was not your first option.
no. I could see her, I could feel her. She was massive. My bump was massive. She was there.
She's a real baby. She's alive. She's kicking,
my baby.
sucking her thumb.
Mhm.
You're lying on a table in Hollis Street. You're told, pop to England, love.
Yeah.
What did you do next?
So then they just told us we could go home.
Just
Yeah.
leave.
and that if I wanted a definite, I could have an amniocentesis, and I could come back on Monday for that. But he kind of said that was it. And he said, you can stay with us for care, or you can go back to your own hospital.
Okay.
So I had to get on the train, and I remember not being able to stop crying and getting into the taxi, and the taxi man picking us up from the maternity hospital. And I remember feeling really bad for that taxi driver, that I was in the back of his car.
Crying.
Inconsolable.
Yeah.
You've
been given the worst news a mother can get.
Yeah.
Your child will die.
Yeah, yeah. And then we had to get on a really packed train, really, really busy train. And again, I couldn't stop crying, and I had to sit at a table across from two lovely people. I often think of them. And they had a flask of tea and some biscuits. And she looked over at me, and I was quite obviously pregnant, and she said, "Have you long left?" And I said, "I don't know."
Because you didn't.
Because I didn't. And then she offered me a biscuit.
The worst thing someone can do, be kind to you if you...
Yeah, yeah.
You obviously broke down.
Well, I was crying when she started speaking to
Yeah.
me, which I think was really wonderful, that she still
That
spoke
she
to
still
me.
spoke.
Yeah, yeah. She knew there was
Yeah.
obviously something wrong.
We hear a lot about women's journeys. We don't hear about Vicky's journey or the journeys of women who want to keep their child, who've been given that diagnosis and just faced with that harsh pop to England love. And if you were that couple, if you remember sitting opposite a young woman on a train, pregnant and crying, coming from Dublin, contact us. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
You get back to Waterford. What happens next?
We had to drive them from the train station home, and I didn't want to look at my phone to Google this.
You didn't want to know.
I just remember we had to drive an hour from the train station then home. And I got home and I got into the shower and I screamed and I screamed and I screamed until Leodin's dad, Michael, he didn't know what to do, and he called my father. And my father came and sat with me for the evening, and I just couldn't believe that this baby that was still kicking me.
Alive, kicking,
Yeah.
sucking her thumb.
And how was
Yeah.
my only option? How could a doctor just say to me that was my only option?
In the days that followed this, you must have been in despair. Did it cross your mind to end this?
It did, absolutely. One particular time, Leodin towards the end would start to slow down and she wouldn't kick. And I would be very aware counting her kicks. And she had gone very quiet, and it used to terrify me. I'm like, please don't let her be gone, don't let this be it.
Not yet.
Not yet. And I would pop into my GP, they were great, and they would run the Doppler and they would check. And she was such a little monkey, she would move from the Doppler, you know, it takes so long here to get her heartbeat.
Yeah.
And they would find it, and everybody in the room would be so relieved. Everybody
She
would
still
like,
had her heartbeat.
she's there. And the nurses used to be so, and they're like, okay, Vicky, you know.
Was there a difference between the treatment you received in Waterford Regional and the treatment you received in Holles Street?
Holles Street were good, they were kind.
Yeah.
But I never went back there after that. Waterford were amazing to me.
What do they do differently?
My consultant, I was only talking about this the other day, my consultant said to me, Vicky, there's my mobile number. If you need anything, call me. Now, I never did.
But you had it.
But that level of support,
That's amazing.
he said to me, he just looked at me and he said, I know this is hard. He said, you're not meant to, your children are not meant to die. He said, this is horrible. Yes. But he said, are you still working? And I said, yeah. And he said, Vicky, no, come out of work. Okay. This is her time now. These are her moments. These are her first steps. Spend them with her. And it was like I had been given permission to love her. And I did. I took my maternity from work and spent the summer with her.
And that must have been magical.
It was. But there was days that I felt I couldn't wake up and check was she there anymore.
In case she
and
wasn't.
That fear, and I had the other children at home, and it was terrifying, and it was exhausting. There was days
must
it was
have
so exhausting.
You were under, in a sense, a death sentence.
Absolutely. Even when she was alive, we went to our local undertaker to pick out her coffin. And I remember feeling so guilty.
Hard task.
It was, and she was moving that day. She was there and she was kicking, but I just wanted to be prepared for when the time came, because I didn't think that I would be able to manage after
Those
she was born.
decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted everything to be prepared and ready.
You've said before that she loved cake.
She did.
She reacted when you ate cake.
So I said this to, when I first found out I was pregnant, I was like, I'm going to be so good, I'm not going to eat rubbish, I'm going to be so healthy in this pregnancy. And a different doctor had said to me in the hospital, when she quietens down, have something sweet, have Lucozade or cake or something, it's fine. And it really used to get her going, she really used to. And when I said to the doctor, how does that work? And they said, she can taste what you eat in your amniotic fluid. So I got great comfort knowing that Liadon
Had something she liked.
absolutely,
And something you
absolutely.
shared.
Yeah, and we would read to her, and she would react to our voices.
Did you know when she was gone?
I did.
How did
it was.
happen, Vicky?
I feel like it was almost a gift now. 4 years later, I can say that. She'd been very quiet all day, very quiet, and my friend called, and she said, "How is she?" I said, "She's been really quiet now today. She's playing up, you know." And she said, "Look, she had got me these Marks and Spencer Sundays cakes," and she said, "Her favourites, we have these, and a cup of tea, and she'll be fine." So we did. We had the Marks and Spencer Sundays and a cup of tea, and within about 10 minutes, I got this massive kick and a stretch. And I remember my heart just leaping, and I just hugged her in, and I was like, "Oh, thank you, sweetheart. You hang in that cupcake. You know, you got this."
You're still
And
there.
just the relief she was there, you
Yeah.
know, and she'd had cake, and we were just together. We were all together as a family. And then a short time after that, I got a really, really bad pain,
Okay,
and that was the last time Liadon kicked.
that was the end.
That was the end.
That must have been very hard for you.
I was in denial. I kind of knew it.
Yeah.
She felt different.
Okay,
She felt heavier.
she wasn't moving.
She wasn't moving.
What age was she at that point, Vicky?
So she was 33 weeks.
Okay,
33 weeks.
how long more did your pregnancy last?
The doctor was very good when we went down to be confirmed that she was gone. And I remember they put the scan. I knew in my heart she was gone.
But you
when
still
we-
had a hope. There's
I
always
did,
hope, isn't there?
absolutely, because
Yeah.
she was always playing up. You know,
Yes.
she used to do this. so-
Trying to avoid the Doppler.
Yeah.
So they can't hear
Yeah.
her heartbeat. Yeah.
And on the scan, she was just much lower down,
Yeah.
and she was so very still. And the
Yes.
screen was very still, compared to her usually jumping around and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was another moment I'll never forget, where I wanted to jump out the window. I just wanted
Was
to
that-
get away from everything.
Not to have to face any of this, this grief, this
Didn't
agony.
want to be there.
Yeah. You could leave your own body.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So hard to describe. But the doctors and midwives were great. They were like, "You can stay in now, and you can have her. You can go home and spend some time with family and come back, and you know, whatever, you know, you might go into labour naturally, or we can induce you." And they spoke to me about all my options.
Yes.
And we decided to go home,
Okay.
And
Spend some time with family.
spend some time with family. And it was my son's birthday coming up, so we wanted her to be born before his birthday.
Yes.
So we arranged to go back in on Sunday for her to be induced.
And then you had the funeral.
Then we had her funeral. It was, the neighbours must have thought I was insane, and I was lucky enough to have my best friend, who was as nutty as me, help me organise the most glamorous funeral. It was wonderful. We had balloons. The local ice cream man heard that it was a funeral, and he pulled down and gave everybody their ice cream. We had a bouncy castle. We had a cake with her name on it.
It was Liadon's party.
It was her party, and the kids still remember it.
Yeah.
And everybody came, and everybody celebrated her, and it was her day.
The grief must have been savage in the days after that. You'd lost your child, and although you had come to some terms with it, I don't think we're ever prepared for that level of grief.
No, and I would be a very black and white person. I would never have been depressed or anything before. I suffered
Yes.
anxiety, and I had even been telling myself that this won't be too bad. Yes, you know, you'll be sad, but
You're ready for it.
yeah, you don't know. You didn't really have
Yeah.
her. You know, you're not going to be too bad. And I was actually incapacitated for at least 8 weeks. I couldn't get off the couch with a broken heart. The pain,
The agony of the grief.
the agony. When people say agony of grief, it is physical agony. You can't speak, you can't eat, you can't sleep. I couldn't bear noise in the house. I couldn't, you know, look after my other children. I was, you know, I had great support around me, but the pain of losing her was nothing like I expected.
It was that big. She was your child,
Yeah.
and she was gone. Did you dream about her? I've been told people dream in those situations.
2 nights after we buried her, I had fallen asleep, and I jumped out of bed really quickly. And I think because I had 2 other children, I thought I had fallen asleep on her. And I started pulling at the blankets looking for her. And Michael said, "Vicky, what are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "Where is she? Where is she? I've fallen asleep. Where is she? I can't find her." And he just looked and he said, "She's not here.
She's not here, Darren.
She's not here."
That must have been a terrible moment.
It's like being shot.
You said, I know, that you wished, you really would have loved if Leadon had Downs. Why would you say that?
Because I remember initially when the midwife said something genetic,
Yes.
I was so terrified it was going to be Downs. I didn't realise that there was so much, there was things that killed babies. You know,
Yes.
I hadn't shared stories, you know. And afterwards I remember thinking, please let them be wrong. Please, just let her have Down syndrome. I will take that
I'll take Downs.
with both hands.
Give me Downs.
Yeah, please,
Yeah.
just let it be that.
Because you would have her.
She would be fine. She would be fine. She would be here as she should have been.
I'm not looking at my phone because I'm distracted. I'm looking at my phone because that's how we're getting messages from people out there on Facebook. And Virginia has a great point. She said, Harris needs to invest in perinatal hospice care rather than just giving abortion as the only option. Why do you think the government won't do this?
Personally, I think it's down to money. I think the government, Simon Harris doesn't care about I have asked Simon Harris 8 times by email to meet with me.
8
I have
times.
asked Kate O'Connell to meet with me. She has blocked me from...
Did you get any reply from either Harris or Kate O'Connell,
No,
TD?
no. Simon Harris initially responded to Every Life Counts 2 years ago saying his secretary did, saying he was too busy, but I have emailed him 8 times, separate times, just to tell him. He said that he moved from being pro-life to pro-abortion because he had met with mothers that needed to travel to terminate their babies.
Okay.
So all I wanted to do was meet and tell him about our babies, tell him about our journeys, about our
So, Mr.
families.
Harris, if you're out there, or if there's anyone who's talking to you out there, Vicky Worrell is a mother, and Vicky Worrell had to travel, but not for an abortion. She travelled to keep her child. Please, meet Vicky, and do something about hospice care. Vicky, you now work with Every Life Counts. What do you do? What does Every Life Counts do?
So we offer support to parents that have received a bad diagnosis. And I remember the fear of having nowhere to turn, not knowing who to contact.
No one to talk to.
No one to talk to, no one to say, well, look, we've been through this is what may happen, what may not happen. And it was terrifying. And if you start looking on the internet, you know, you
fears
find
are
awful
overwhelming.
things.
It's the terrible
Absolutely. And,
pictures, the-
yeah, and
yeah.
there was no direction, there was no offer of help for me to, you know, this society or that society. So I said I never wanted another mother to feel like, another parent to feel
go
like
through
that.
what you went through. So you now help and counsel couples who've had this diagnosis?
We offer peer-to-peer support where we put them in touch with other parents.
You said that you thought that it was money, that abortion is obviously a cheaper option than perinatal hospice care. Does Every Life Counts, which, it's counselling, it should be relatively cheap. Do you get money from the government?
No, not a penny. We get all our money from supporters and parents we have helped fundraise. We have a wonderful family who lost their daughter only back in January that had a baby shower for their baby. And they asked everybody that came to the baby shower to make a donation to Every Life Counts, and they donated a wonderful amount of money towards us.
So you're basically funded by voluntary donations from wonderfully generous people and families that have been through this grief and pain.
Yeah.
But nothing from the government.
No.
For all the good work you do.
Yeah.
Vicky, abortion's legal now in Ireland.
Sadly.
Do you think that the difference between, say, Holles Street and Waterford Regional, that difference in care, do you think that will continue?
I have a terrible fear, and the reason I say this is because I have heard stories of this, of mothers being coerced, bullied even, into this, not getting time to think. I spoke to a woman there recently, she's had a very bad diagnosis, and she has so much other stuff going on.
Yes.
And she felt this may be an option for her to terminate her pregnancy. And it wasn't because she wanted an abortion, it was because she had no financial support. She had no counselling support, emotional support. And that was why she felt she needed to do that.
So you think that women would be trapped into it. Do you think your grief would have been different? I mean, you went through savage grief. Surely having the abortion would have short-circuited that.
I know for me, and I have said this before, and I think this is why I campaign so passionately against abortion, is if I had been left at home with knowing that I had permitted an injection into her heart to stop it, not knowing her outcome, not letting it be on her terms. We know babies with trisomy live. They do well, some of them.
With some of the trisomies, yes.
Yeah, there's beautiful Kathleen Rose, and she's 13 now, and she has trisomy 13, and she was never meant to live at all. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we always held on to that hope. And this was Liadon's path. It was a short life, but a very meaningful life full of love. And it was on her terms. It was never my place to take her chances away from her. She
got to live her life on her terms. We're going to finish soon, but Donny and Sarah have a question. They're concerned that we're going down the route of New York, where you've seen the legislation there. What did you think of what happened there?
I think it's horrific. I think they're using babies, sick babies, to push for this extreme infanticide. It's horrific. And they're saying it's not just for sick babies, they're saying it's for social, economic reasons as well. There is never, ever a reason to do that. Ever. Your baby, if your baby is that sick, you're going to lose your baby regardless.
And killing the baby won't help.
No.
Won't help the grief. Just to be clear, some of our listeners may not be aware, New York liberalised its abortion regime last week. It was signed into law. The legislators that voted for it stood and gave themselves a round of applause when they had passed the legislation. It is one of the most liberal in the world, and it permits the abortion of a child right up to birth. The child can actually be in the birth canal when the child is killed. You think that there's a danger that Ireland is going to follow this route if we don't keep campaigning?
Well, from what Simon Harris has put forward in the legislation and has been passed, is that if a baby is seen not to live 28 days after birth,
yes.
Now that could cover so many conditions. And who is he to say whether a baby will live 28 days or not?
How do you predict that?
That's it. And he says without life-sustaining measures. To feed a newborn is a life-sustaining measure.
True.
So
tetanus injections, vitamin K are in a sense life-sustaining measures.
Warmth is a life-sustaining measure.
Yes.
So if that's the case, it's open to any baby. And he's just made this so extremely liberal. And even the recent case of the poor woman that was brought into the doll, and the baby had omphalocele, so its intestines were outside, and the Coombe didn't see fit that that was a life-limiting condition, which it isn't. And it's just, they keep pushing it for these sick children. And there's no, as much as the TDs fought, we know our great TDs that fought for pain relief for the babies. So if Leodin had been born alive, she would have got every care possible. She would have been given pain relief medication. But if I wanted to inject her into the heart to stop her heart beating...
With phenol.
Yeah.
Which you, by the way, you can't do to a horse.
Yeah.
If you did it to a horse on a race course without anaesthetic, you actually would be up for cruelty to an animal.
Yeah, you'd be breaking the law.
Yeah.
And they would have given her that injection and called it healthcare.
Yeah. Vicky, you've raised extraordinary points. You've been amazingly honest, and I think from the silence in the room, I'm guessing there's silence in a lot of sitting rooms tonight out there on Facebook. Thank you very much for being with us.